car.
Hey everybody, we are going live.
Oh,
Yeah, we're still waiting for a couple of people. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
pretty good. You're a little low.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. And I'd like to start off with the Aboriginal Acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the land of which we are gathered as the traditional territory of the Kootenay, the Silix, and Senex peoples, and is home to Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land, rivers, and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. And with that, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Renwick, second by Councillor Lockenberg. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. And the first up on the agenda is resolutions for the AKBLG. And our corporate officer, Sarah Winton, will give us a bit of an overview of some of the resolutions we put forward last year. Go, Gavin.
No. Is Kevin on?
Kevin looks like he's on, yes.
We can't see him.
We can't see Kevin. We can't see Janice if she's around there.
We might want to just see who's on.
Janice is here. We don't have Kevin on video, but he's here.
Can you see, Gabe?
And I would really appreciate if somebody could send me the code again, because it
Yeah, you just
wasn't
need to-
allowing me to come in, and so now I'm having to run off my phone. I don't know why it's not letting me come in. I seem to have the right number, but it wouldn't let me come. It's telling me I've got the wrong password. But I'm here.
Do you,
Janice, yeah. So we need a different screen here because I can't see Janice. And I'm not sure what Kevin is.
See myself above
See
your
Janice
head,
up there,
even, John.
But, down on this one here.
maybe Kevin talks, he'll get on.
Okay, Kevin, can you hear
He's
me?
there.
Kevin's on.
Yeah, we're not getting them here, and we're not hearing them.
Yeah, I am here. I was just on mute.
Kevin, thank you.
No video.
Thank you, Kevin. You're probably on mute.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay, now we got a better screen set up now. Thanks very much, Steve. Just bear with us again, once again, when we're starting off on the Zoom with this many people, it's not that easy to collect everybody. So, and I made a mistake in suggesting that Sarah had an update of last year's resolution that went to AKBLG. She doesn't. Okay,
Kevin may.
but Kevin may. And that might be putting you on the spot as well, Kevin, because you probably thought Sarah did, and she probably thought you did.
Yeah, I think we've must have passed this ball back and forth. Traditionally, we haven't taken a lot to AKBLG, and I,
Thanks,
you know,
Colin.
and just
There.
and just in some internal conversations, probably one of the ones that we'd like government to consider is just our whole issue around stat right-of-ways for our infrastructure, whether that's water, sewer, electrical. But I don't. It's probably more of a Nelson, Summerland, Penticton might be issue rather than a AKBLG issue. So it's something we might want to bring forward directly to government as opposed to bring it through the AKBLG. The other one that we brought in the past, which I think the understanding at the AKBLG wasn't there of what we were trying to achieve, and that was really around all these development variances that you see. And right now, it's a requirement that council approves all of them. And what we had suggested is, give councils a little more flexibility if there are certain ones that you're comfortable with staff making. It's 6 inches out here, or put out there, and you've basically rubber stamped every one of those, and but give variant. You would give a allowance to staff to deal with variances of these types, and other ones that were maybe more substantive, that those would come to council. Would just reduce processing time for people trying to, get things done on their properties. But that one, again, I don't know, it's just a lack of understanding of other elected officials or wanting to hold on to all those rights, but we just the nature of our topography and, a lot of those older homes were built before, um, property boundaries were as important as they are today, and it's just as you seem to get a lot of those small little foot here, 2 feet there, or ones that make a fair amount of sense. So we could, if that's something that's of interest, we could put something together then. And basically what we said was that'd be 100% of the discretion of a council. That could either say we want to see everyone, or say we only want to see these type, and staff can have discretion on some of those smaller ones.
Okay, that's one option. Cal, you had a question?
Yeah, I like that one, Kevin, but I guess if we can determine which ones we would look at and which ones we would, just let slide on through, because I think there's some where we have some, we've had some pretty good conversations and people have brought up some pretty good concerns on some of those variances. So just as long as we're not giving it all up, I suppose, and just sliding everything through, I'd be in favor of that.
Thanks. Jesse, just before you go, Councillor Woodward, we're not obligated to bring anything to AKBLG, just so you know, so we don't have to make stuff up just so we have a presence on the floor. I'm sure there'll be more than enough resolutions there. Anyway, but however, it's open for us. Councillor Woodward, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering about, and this might be a UBCM piece, but help, because we've done our climate plan and we're going to try to do work that plan recommends, and it's going to cost money. And I'm wondering, would there be an AKBLG resolution that we could get some help to do that from the government, so that it's not, it doesn't have to be fully on the taxpayer, or that we could basically get some support essentially to do some mitigation adaptation work.
Thank you. Councillor Luxembourg, the same subject?
Yeah, same subject. We, Jesse, at the UBCM has adopted the Climate Action Committee's recommendations as UBCM policy now. And so that's a good frame to either just accept that it's already UBCM policy, so we don't have to kind of keep piling onto it. Or if you want to tweak or supplement it, it's a good thing to make a resolution based on what might be missing. And there's a few resolutions out there, one through this thing called Help Cities Lead. And you can see it helpcitieslead.org, I think, which is based around, it's a little different. It's looking for some more support around PACE financing and stuff that might not be directly relevant to Nelson, but so there's some things to look at there. But I do recommend maybe either looking at or just deferring to UBCM already on UBCM policy, because it doesn't make sense to push something through that's already there.
Thank you. Kevin? Oh, sorry.
I just want to.
Hang on, Kevin. Councillor Page, did you have your hand up already?
It was just related to Rick's, if yours is the same, Councillor Page. I just wanted to know whether at the UBCM they have dealt with the challenge, because we financed through MFA that we're not eligible for the FCM program. Was that part of that? Because if not, that might be one that you might be interested in.
That's a really, no, Kevin. Help Cities Lead does sort of touch on that, but it's a good one. So no, it doesn't deal with that directly.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to bring some of the conversation that we were having at the AKBLG, specifically around some advocacy push that will happen between now and the AGM, looking for communities to report to us what kind of issues they want AKBLG to focus on. There's going to be a bit of a we've already been an association that tries to keep a pretty trim list and provide a bit more focus and priority on what the asks are coming from the area, as opposed to, you know, all the things put into a big basket, and, you know, maybe you get one of them sees the light of day, or maybe, you know, it doesn't at all, right? It gets just shifted off because no one has time to go through it at the actual UBCM. So I think I'm repeating a bit of the mayor's point there of like, it is an opportunity, but what if there is something, does it reach the threshold where we really want to add it to the pile? AKBOG will go through a process at the end and kind of trim it down to a very select list that they put through to UBCM. That's just part of our AGM process. But it does sound like there might be something around those tweaks to the MFA or similar, that it would have a broad community impact. And just know that there will be some sort of reach out to be like, hey, we would like to take a more advocacy role with some of these issues, like BC ambulance services come up. There's been chatter about the rules around the ALR lands, but then the conversation at the board is to how to best reach the communities and ask in a non-biased way what they think they are, so, you know, there's no prejudice in how various topics rise to the mix. But just for council's awareness that there will be that advocacy piece coming out in the following weeks and maybe a month or so, just to see where the resources want to be spent as an area association. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks very much, Keith, for that. It's good to keep that in mind. The other thing too, it's worth keeping in mind that we make sure that we're not rehashing stuff that has already gone to UBCM. So what we've talked about so far is probably topics that we could advocate directly ourselves on. The one thing that did come to my mind this year, and I agree totally with what Keith's saying about keeping it simple, rather than having too much stuff on there, because things get lost. But the one thing that came to my mind is all of these regional districts are doing housing reports, and I'm just wondering, because if we were to form regional housing committees, we might need some funding from the provincial government to help get those off the ground. Maybe even keep them in place on an ongoing basis. And I haven't given it a lot of thought, but it's something that's been sort of running through my mind. And that's something that would cross all municipalities and regional districts within the catchment area of the AKBLG, because they're all doing those housing reports as we speak, or have completed them. Councillor Woodward?
Hey, Mayor, I wanted to add to that. I think, you know, like one of the things I think would be really important for a regional housing strategy is to have some of the experts we have here in Nelson who have moved through many, you know, multi-million-dollar projects and gotten them built, to actually get them out into the community and helping other communities, maybe smaller communities that couldn't afford that kind of help. So maybe a little bit like how, you know, how how Colin goes out to those communities and we help them with their accounting. So maybe that kind of extra money through the AKBLG might be useful to spread out that knowledge around our area.
So we can do a little bit more digging on those couple of topics. By the next meeting, we may or may not have something to bring forward, and it's not the end of the world if we don't, that's for sure. It's a different time now too, with COVID and Zoom and everything else. It's just not the same. There's not the same energy around. The other thing that is happening and is still ongoing is the province has done a very good job of reaching out to communities directly through the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So many of the subjects that you would bring up at AKBLG or UBCM are actually being dealt with on those bi-monthly calls that come up, where most of the folks that are members of the AKBLG are already on those calls. So. Okay, so we leave that for now, and we can maybe put a bit more meat on those bones or not between now and the next regular meeting. That sound fair enough, Sarah?
Yep. Perfect.
Thank you very much, folks. All right, where am I? Oh, right here. That's it for that conversation. So I need a resolution now to close the meeting to the public, please. Councillor Woodward. Seconder, please. Councillor Page. All in favour? Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Okay. We'll just give Jill a couple of minutes to get organised here.